The Blue Roach, by Mark Lopez. The narrator begins to speak. Roaches. Most people think yuck, disgusting. Roaches are the most disgusting bugs on this planet. Most people really do not like cockroaches. But in this story, you will see how hard it can really be for a cockroach to survive in the city. You probably think cockroaches have it easy in the city. No, they do not. They have to face a lot of predators and humans. This story will be focused on a very unique cockroach. She is a female cockroach, but there is something very strange about her. She is blue. Most cockroaches are just black or brown, but somehow the gene pool got mixed up and she came out the color blue. She is an American cockroach. Those big cockroaches you might see if you're walking in the city at night. You probably think they are absolutely disgusting, with a huge body and massive wings. But how do you think it would look if you saw one of those but with the color blue, just blue? You would probably think, wow, what a strange cockroach. It probably has a disease or something. But no, this cockroach does not have a disease, and it is the only one in the world that is blue. Her name? Well, her name is Valerie. Now to the story. And the narrator stops speaking. Start of story. Somewhere in New York City, some cockroach eggs are beginning to hatch. Let me see, maybe around 100. A female cockroach can lay up to 100 eggs. Come on, thought Valerie. I must get out of this shell. And after 1 minute, she was finally out of her egg case. Soon, all of her 100 brothers and sisters were out of their egg cases. But as soon as they came out, they began to all run and scatter everywhere. Valerie could hear them screaming, "Hurry! Run for your lives!" And yes, from out of a dumpster jumped a rat, and the rat began to chase after Valerie's brothers and sisters. The rat thought, "I'm about to have a nice dinner of baby roaches. I have been waiting for this moment, and now I am about to feast." And yes, the rat sure did feast. Out of all those 100 roaches there are only 20 left, and soon they all grouped together. But then, another rat jumped out and began to chase the poor siblings again. You may wonder, is Valerie among them? No, she went back into her eggshell in fear, and soon, all of Valerie's brothers and sisters were eaten up by rats. So yes, this is why a cockroach lays so many eggs. You might not know, but cockroaches have so many predators, so they have to lay a lot of eggs in order to keep the species thriving. Soon, when the rats finally left, Valerie came back out of her egg. Oh no, Valerie thought, what am I supposed to do? I don't know where to go. Then, from behind the dumpster, an adult roach emerged. The adult roach says, "Well, will you look at that, a nice juicy baby cockroach. Yum. I have not eaten anything in days." The narrator speaks. Yes, cockroaches will even eat baby cockroaches. Valerie says, "Please do not eat me. I just hatched. Have pity on me." The adult roach began to go closer to poor Valerie. The adult roach says, "Don't you know, it's hard finding food around here. People may think, oh, there's so much food everywhere. No, there is not. The rats get all the food, and the rats even eat us. You know, it took me a year to become an adult. I once had a wife, but while we were walking, a human thought it was a good idea to step on her. For us roaches, it is actually very tough." Valerie says, "Then where do you guys go to hide from the humans?" The adult roach says, "We go underground, but the humans call it the sewers. But there's still predators there. The rats also live in the sewers. Humans do not seem to understand that we are forced to live in the sewers. If we did not do, humans would absolutely destroy us. But we know that humans will not go in the sewers because it's too dirty." Valerie says, "That is pretty smart of you." The adult roach says, "Thanks. Maybe I won't eat you. You seem pretty special. I guess I will leave you alone and starve for today." As the roach began to leave, it told Valerie one more thing. "Do you know what else? Humans like to think that we are disgusting, dirty creatures." The roach began to wave its antennae angrily. "Humans forced us to live in the sewers. Humans destroyed our forest home. Humans made us this way. Humans are destroying this world. It's sad. Humans will never seem to understand us poor roaches." Yes, some humans might say, "But roaches go into my house. Roaches are disgusting pests." Well, have they ever thought that we are just simply exploring? It's their fault that they build their houses here. We are just simply trying to adapt. We have lives too. Valerie says. How about you tell them? Tell them all the things you would ever wanna tell humans. The adult roach says. I can't. Humans speak some other language. And even if I tried, they would probably step on me as soon as they saw me. You know, without us roaches, humans would most likely be covered in waste. Because of all the waste that they produce. But luckily for the ungrateful humans, we eat the waste, with the help of other friendly bugs. Valerie says. Thanks for the info. What is your name? The adult roach says. My name is Alpha. What's yours? Valerie says. My name is Valerie. But suddenly, a rat jumped out from another nearby dumpster and began to chase Alpha. Alpha shouted behind his shoulder. Goodbye Valerie. Hopefully I see you around again. Unless I get eaten by this fool. And with that, Alpha was gone. And Valerie was on her own. Valerie thought, I'm pretty hungry and there's nothing to eat around here. I guess I have to just simply explore. And after exploring for a bit she found a sewer entrance. What is this? Valerie thought. Is this the sewers that Alpha was talking about? Well, I am way too smart to be going in there. And soon, she found her first human house. Yum. I smell really good food in there. Valerie thought. And she began to walk towards the steps of the house where the door was. She simply could not resist such a delicious aroma. And soon, she walked into the human house. As she was walking she could hear humans talking. Gerald the human that was in this house says. Cynthia, is that food almost ready? I am starving. Cynthia says. Yes honey, it is almost ready. Gerald says. Good. And soon the food was ready. And the two humans sat down at a table and began to eat. And began to talk about human things. But Valerie could not understand what they were saying. And soon, she walked under the table hoping that some food might fall on the ground. Score. From Gerald's plate he lost a little piece of bread. Then Valerie ran to it. And she began to eat. But then, a mouse stood over her. Yum. The mouse exclaimed. A piece of bread and a yummy delicious baby cockroach. That sounds like a great meal. The narrator begins to speak. Yes, even mice love to eat cockroaches. Valerie says. Why do so many things want to eat me? I just want to live my life. The mouse says. Wait, why are you the color blue? Valerie says. I think I was just born that way. The mouse says. Disgusting. I am not going to eat you then. You might be poisonous. But then, one of the humans sees the mouse. Gerald, get the mouse traps. I saw a mouse right now. Exclaims Cynthia. Gerald says. Alright, I will go get the mouse traps after we're done eating. The mouse thinks. They're not getting me, and with that, he left through a crack in the door, and Valerie, she was smart enough to follow him. Valerie thought. Wow, it's not fair. Why do all the humans get to have all the food while we have to starve? When Valerie looked up at the sky, she saw that it was completely dark. Wow, I am seeing my first nightfall. But isn't this when all the predators come out? Oh no. Well, in reality I have no other choice but to keep exploring. And with that, Valerie left the human house and began to explore around the world. Or I guess, around the city. Soon, she reached her first street. And Valerie saw the biggest thing she has ever seen in her life. To us it's just a car. But to a baby roach, it is a humongous monster. Valerie ran back. What the heck was that? And soon, she began to see more go across the street. Then she realized, well, it appears they have their own place that they go on. They just like to be on the streets, they do not go on the sidewalks. So I should be fine if I just walk on the sidewalks. And that is what she did. Soon, the night was coming to an end. And Valerie was exhausted. Okay, Valerie thought. I guess now I have to go in the sewers to sleep. Or maybe, I can figure out some other place to go, and she began to wander, hoping to find somewhere else that was not the sewers. Because she did not want to encounter the rats that were in the sewers. As she was walking, she began to see a green June beetle emerge from the dirt of a human house. Then, the green June beetle saw Valerie. The green June beetle says, "Who are you?" "My name is Paul." Valerie says, "I am something known as a cockroach and my name is Valerie." "Who are you?" Paul says, "I am known as a green June beetle." Valerie says, "Hey Paul, do you think I could dig under the dirt like you did to sleep? Because I do not want to sleep in the sewers." Paul says, I'm afraid you cannot do that, but if you want I can dig you a home. Valerie says. Yes, I would really appreciate that. And soon, Paul was done making Valerie her house. Paul says, alright Valerie, look at your new house. Tell me what you think of it. And with that, Valerie went through the gate of the human house onto the dirt and went into her house. Valerie says, I love it. Thank you so much, Paul. Paul says, no problem, and with that he spread his wings and flew off. And the sun began to shine from the horizon. And while Paul was awake in daytime, Valerie was fast asleep. Soon, it was the next night, and Valerie was now awake. Alright, Valerie thought as she went out of her house, I now have to go find food or I'm going to starve. She began to explore for quite a while until she finally found a nice patch of leaves. Yum. This looks tasty. And she began to eat some of the leaves. But as she was eating, a medium-sized praying mantis grabbed her. Ha ha. The praying mantis exclaimed, I got myself a nice meal. Valerie says, please, why do so many people want to eat me? The praying mantis says, because you are delicious. Valerie thought, this is finally it. I'm finally going to die and my life will be over. I was literally only alive for one day. Man, a roach's life really is hard. As the praying mantis began to take Valerie to his mouth to eat her, a huge grey roach flew down. And, the grey roach had a little baby cockroach on its back. But it was not blue, it was just regular colored. And the big grey cockroach pounced on the praying mantis, completely surprising it. And it let go of Valerie, and while that was happening, the baby cockroach that was on the grey cockroach ran off his back to go check on Valerie. The baby cockroach says, hey, are you okay? Valerie says, no, I have been through so much, I was literally about to die. The baby cockroach says, well, my dad saved you. Valerie says, will your dad be okay? The baby cockroach says, yes, he is one strong fighter, I can tell you that. Valerie says, what is your name? The baby cockroach says, my name is Frank, and yours? Valerie says, my name is Valerie, nice to meet you. Frank says, nice to meet you too, Valerie. And soon, once the grey cockroach was done dealing with the praying mantis, it went to Frank and Valerie. The grey cockroach says, well, Frank, how is our new guest? Frank says, she says she's not alright because she was scared that she almost died. The grey cockroach says, that is understandable. Valerie tells the grey cockroach, what is your name? The grey cockroach says, my name is Jared. How about yours? Valerie says, my name is Valerie. Nice to meet you, Jared. Jared says, I see that you have met my son Frank. Valerie says, yes, I have. Jared says, I was wondering, do you think you would like it if I adopted you into my little family? Or I guess, just Jared and I. Valerie began to feel very excited. Valerie says, of course, I would love to be with you guys. Jared says, yay yay yay, I have a sister. Well, kind of, but I guess more of a friend. Jared says, alright guys, get on my back so we can find some food. And with that, Valerie and Frank got onto Jared's back, and Jared flew off to find food. Soon, after a few weeks, it's beginning to be fall, and Jared is beginning to get impatient. Valerie says, Jared, what is wrong? Jared says, I have to build you to a home and I have to store a lot of food in it for the winter for you guys to survive. It's a lot of hard work for me. Frank and Valerie are definitely a lot bigger now. They are not that small like they used to be, but they are still small enough to be considered baby cockroaches, but big enough to be considered not a baby cockroach, if that makes any sense. They are both half an inch long. But, as Jared was scrounging around for more food and leaves to make the home, they heard something. It was a lot of cockroaches screaming. It turns out, humans were in something called a helicopter, and dropping pesticide all over the ground. Jared shouted, hurry, get on my back, we must fly out of here. And with that, they ran onto his back and Jared flew off as fast as he could possibly manage. But, some of the pesticide hit poor Jared but on his wings. Immediately, his wings were disabled and he fell to the ground. But Jared still had his feet, and he ran for his life. Not just for him, but also the kids that he had on his back. He really cared about them and he at least wanted them to survive the winter. In reality, he knew that he probably will not survive the winter, because eventually, the pesticide will reach his body, but for now they are stuck in his wings. Jared managed to get away. Frank says, Dad, are you okay? Jared says, I'm okay for now, but I cannot fly anymore. I must get to finishing your home before it's too late. Valerie says, you have to believe in yourself, Jared. You might be able to survive, come on. Jared leaves them. He knew he had to hurry up and build their home. Valerie says, do you think Jared will make it? Frank says, I have not known my father for a long time, but I do know that he is a fighter, and that he really cares for us at least. He will not give up until he has the home built for us. And once the sun was poking from the horizon, Jared finished their home. But Jared, he was absolutely exhausted. Jared says, come on guys, this way to your home, make sure to not leave because it's going to be winter soon. Soon they enter their home and they finally realized how hard Jared really worked. It is a humongous chamber filled to the brim with food for them. Jared follows them into their home and lays down. Valerie says, thank you so much, Jared, this means so much to me. Valerie began to feel grateful. She absolutely loved her new adoptive father. She knew that without him, she probably would not be alive still. Frank says, thank you so much, Dad. You are the best dad I could have ever asked for. Jared says, no problem guys, I really love you guys and I'll do anything for you guys to survive. And then he begins to laugh to himself. Jared thinks, I really do love my kids. Even though one of them is mine and the other one is not. I do not care. Out of all the eggs that my wife laid, only one of them survived, and that was my son Frank. Because a human poured pesticides on all of them. But my wife told me, please take care of our son. And I promised to her with all my heart that I would. I told her that I would give him the best life that I could. Man, I wonder would my wife be proud of me for what I have done? I bet she would. I really miss her. And Jared began to cry silently. Jared thinks, the fact that I am also going to die by pesticides. Unbelievable. Now we fast forward after the winter. Now it is finally spring. And the two baby cockroaches are not really babies anymore. They are now teenagers by the end of spring. They will turn into adults. As for Jared, he's barely alive. Frank says, Dad, it's finally spring, come out and feel the nice spring air. Valerie says, yeah, let's go enjoy the spring, there's so much things to eat now. Jared says, I can't. I am way too weak. And with that, Valerie and Frank took Jared out of the home into the nice spring air. And Jared just lay there. Frank and Valerie knew that he was finally dying. But at least, Jared can enjoy the nice spring air before he dies. Jared says, hey kids, please take care of yourselves. I simply do not have much time here anymore. Valerie and Frank begin to cry. We will miss you, father. They say you are the best dad ever. Thank you for all that you have done for us. Jared says, you are welcome. Stay safe out there in the big wide world. And in a few minutes, he was gone. Valerie began to think back when she first hatched. How so many predators wanted to eat her and somehow the fates kept her alive. And she began to think how hard the winter was. How cold the winter was, killing so many cockroaches. But yet, she and Frank survived. And now it was spring. But they were not out of the woods yet. There are going to be more predators than ever now. Suddenly a bird sees Frank and Valerie. With lightning speed, the bird swooped down. But without a second to spare, Frank put Jared's body in front of them and the bird got him. Frank says, my father would have been honored to have saved us once more. And with that they enter their home again and go to sleep for the day. Soon, it was night time again. Frank says, well Valerie, it's time to go exploring and hope we do not get eaten today. Valerie says, yeah, I really hope we do not get eaten. And they both come out of their home and began to explore to find food. Suddenly, as they were walking, an adult roach comes out from behind a dumpster. And it was Alpha. Alpha says, Valerie, is that you? Valerie says, Alpha, yes it's me. Did you survive the winter? Alpha says, yes I did, yes I did. And who is your new friend? Valerie says, he's Frank. Frank says, hey Alpha, nice to meet you. Alpha says, nice to meet you too. Alpha says, hey, do you guys need food? Valerie and Frank say, yes we would love some food. Alpha says, alright then follow me, and he leads them to a sewer entrance. Valerie says, I do not really wanna go in there. Alpha says, why? That is where the food is, there is not much food out here. Valerie says, it's because I mainly got used to eating leaves. Frank says, yeah, I don't really wanna eat disgusting things that are in there. Alpha says, I guess I'll go see if I can find some leaves. And after 1 minute, he comes back with a big leaf. Valerie and Frank began to chow down. And eventually, the whole night was spent by Alpha teaching them how to find leaves and how to forage for food. And eventually, summer is over, and Alpha and Frank are finally full adult American cockroaches. Through all the odds that were against Valerie, she actually managed to survive until adulthood. Valerie says, "Well, Frank, this is where we say goodbye. Because once cockroaches reach adulthood, they usually go their own ways." Frank says, "Darn it, I loved being with you." Valerie says, "I loved being with you too. It's really sad that we have to part." And soon, the cockroaches began to walk their separate ways. But then Valerie realized, they were adults now and they weren't truly brothers and sisters. Valerie realized that she was adopted, and that she did not have to leave Frank. She could actually marry him, because in reality, they were not related. Valerie says, "Wait up, Frank. We do not have to leave each other. Since I am not related to you in reality, we could get married." Frank began to feel overjoyed. Frank was so happy that he flapped his wings and he began to fly. Frank shouted, "I am flying, and I get to be with my love." Soon, Frank was flying very high in the sky. He felt so happy and so glad. Valerie tried to fly, but female cockroaches cannot fly because their bodies are too big and their wings are smaller than their body. But as Frank was flying, a owl swooped down and grabbed him and took him away. It was over in seconds. Frank was gone, and the owl was already devouring him. The narrator begins to speak. "See what I mean? The bug world is very unpredictable. And this is what happens every day. Couples find each other, but a predator always seems to take one of them. Being a bug is actually very tough." Frank was actually gone. Valerie could not believe her luck. Valerie thought, after all that me and Frank went through, this is how it had to end. Man, life is so tough. And Valerie just began to wander around, not really caring what happened anymore. But then, Valerie began to remember what Frank would always tell her. Frank would say, "Valerie, if one of us ever go, let's promise that the other that is still alive will carry on." And Valerie would say, "All right, Frank, we will do that." And as Valerie was reflecting back at the past, humans were coming towards her to catch her. It was Mark the entomologist, and his helper Jocelyn. Mark the entomologist decided to go with Jocelyn to New York to study city wildlife. Jocelyn says, "Wait, Mark, stop. There's a blue cockroach." Mark says, "What? A blue cockroach? Catch it." And without a second to spare, Jocelyn put the net over poor Valerie and she was captured. Jocelyn says, I got it, look." And Jocelyn gives Mark the net. Then Mark opens the net and takes out Valerie. Valerie does not move. Somehow, she sensed not to fear him. Mark says, "So Jocelyn, this is actually a blue cockroach? It's so friendly." Jocelyn says, "Yes, it is a blue cockroach." Jocelyn says, "Honestly, it looks pretty, looks like it's sparkling. Can I touch it?" Mark says, "Of course you could touch it." And Jocelyn touches it. And Valerie just stays there. And soon, Mark and Jocelyn go back to their hotel room. Mark says, "I say, that was a pretty successful hunt." Jocelyn says, "I agree with you, I think we got a little jewel, but a live jewel." Mark says agreed, and he puts Valerie in one of his bug enclosures. As Valerie began to look around in the new enclosure she was in, she realized she had everything she could possibly imagine. She had food and water, and even a place to sleep. And even to this day, Valerie still lives with Mark and Jocelyn, but now she is in their house, and their house is not located in New York. And Mark and Jocelyn actually won rewards, because this cockroach was so tame, but she was also very smart and she managed to learn some tricks. Like for example, when they would take Valerie to perform, they would just let her go, and whenever Mark or Jocelyn would call her name, she would come running back to them. Valerie loves her home with her new human owners. She imagines that they are her new mum and dad. Valerie thinks, "What an interesting life I have had, but I am glad that things went out this way. Now I have a home, and I even have a loving family. I just simply cannot ask for any more." And whenever people see Valerie, they always like to say, "Oh look, here comes the blue roach." The end.
Speed 2 minutes. Heading book to 5 minutes. Heading book default 50. Heading book default. Heading 1 only. Heading 1 only. Control center. Select airplane load selected.